My name is Whitney Doig, and I'm joined by my co-host Zaira and two very special guests, which some of you are going to know and some of you may be meeting for the first time. Marissa Buckley, who is the co-founder of RevUp, and Curtis Goldsborough, the president of National Insurance Inspection Services. Thank you both so much for joining us today. I'm so pumped to have you on this episode because we have the perfect topic for the two of you in store today. But before we get into this topic that we're talking about today, I do want to take a moment to talk about an award that you both recently received called the Making Waves Award. And I think it's important to note that the word making is an actual verb with actual action behind it. So if you both will take just a couple of seconds and talk us through what that means to you to be actively making waves in the industry. And then Zaira had a couple of little nuggets that she wanted to put in there as well. So we'll pop it over. We'll go Curtis first.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why mine was called the Making Waves Award, because it should have just been called the Making Memes Award, because I feel like that's the only reason that I was that I was nominated.
Not true.
Not true. I'll even say that.
No, it was such an honor. I mean, honestly, we had a ton of fun with it. Last week at the conference, and I really did. I mean, I felt I felt very out of place with so many other people who I felt have made lifetimes of meaningful contributions to the insurance industry, and I'm kind of a newcomer on the scene. Not newcomer to the industry, but I guess have more recently come out of my shell, I guess. I don't know. But it was super special. I was very honored and humbled, and my Making Waves Award is proudly sitting behind me. So
oh man, it's blurred, so we can't see it. But I find it really interesting. Because when did you break out of your shell? Like, was there a moment where you felt like I want to be free type of queen moment? What brought this on?
yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I feel like the insurance nerds group and community was kind of the genesis of that. And I kind of got connected with them initially, I guess 4 years ago. And really made the first piece of content, like the original OG Insurtech rap, which is still floating around out there. But I was definitely hesitant, to put that out there, but insurance nerds kind of gave me the boost and confidence to throw caution to the wind and do something crazy. And but again, that was kind of the initial genesis of it, and I unfortunately didn't really ride that wave. It was kind of a flash in the pan, and then I shrunk back into into my shell and really did that for the next 3 years, until this past year and the infamous hard market video, and then really decided to dive all into it and stay consistent with creating content. So
thank goodness you did.
Yeah.
We are all better for all of your videos and your memes and all of your content.
Yeah, I feel memes are like a form of language really at this point. Like they're a part of our lexicon.
Yeah, they absolutely are.
Right? Right.
Absolutely. And Marissa, same for you. What is your take on that? What does that mean for you?
So I just want to, first of all, disagree with Curtis, because that's what I do. He definitely deserves to be receiving that award with everybody else. He is being extremely humble, but he's been in the industry for a long time and saw a critical problem in one of the core services of insurance, which is underwriting and being able to deliver great products to people. And he decided to do something about it. So, I mean, that is a massive tsunami of a wave that he created. And then I will also say the fact that he's generating this content, he's creating a huge amount of awareness around the issues. So it's getting attention in some very interesting ways, but he is doing a great job at really creating a lot of exposure around those issues, and that hopefully drives people to take action and resolve them. So I just want to say I totally disagree with him.
You two getting along. This is history.
It's
We
cute.
document that.
Let's not go that far, but so now about me. For me, it is really like twofold. It is the people, the fact that the past winners they chose the finalists for this year's honorees. So I think that is so amazing to be chosen by your peers and people that you admire in the industry. The other piece is I've had the fortunate experience of working with Stacey Brown pretty closely for the last 2 years. And through that time, and I have said this to him, is that he's got an extraordinary amount of integrity and a really high moral code when it comes to creating events and wanting to have the best quality content and the best experience for people. And really focused on driving innovation in the industry. So coming from an organization like that, that's founded by somebody who doesn't want to cut corners, but really do things the right way and make the best experience possible. I mean, if you were at IHS, it really is one of the most beautiful events you could go to. Like that, you walk into that area and you're like, should I touch that because it's so clean and beautiful? It's like, it looks like they've got Disney operations there, right? It's just fantastic. So I would say that's really the big key. It very special in regards to those two things, despite who I had to stand alongside.
Well, Marissa, I saw your interview with AM Best TV, and there was something that stuck out to me, which when you were asked like the best career advice you've gotten, you said to pause. And I agree with that completely, but I had a question about what you meant with challenge your assumptions, right? This takes me back to principles thinking, and when you are constrained by 4 walls that you assume exist, you fail to see past that, right? And I was wondering if that's what you meant, or yeah, where you were going with the challenging assumption.
Thank you for watching that. First of all, I appreciate it. Curtis was the first to tell me, like, how could you talk for 11 minutes? Like, why was that interview so long? So just so you know, this is the back end support that I get from Curtis. Okay. But that was really meaningful advice to me. I was fortunate enough to have executive coaching in my career. So we had a CEO that invested in doing that for leadership. And one of the things that she taught me is, and it really is a reconditioning of the mind, is rather than being so compelled to respond to people because you've got an answer or because you want to provide support or help, just pause. And if somebody's asking something of you and you don't have an answer, don't feel the need that you need to jump in and start brainstorming about ideas. Just pause and really think about it. And in my mind, it really does put you in a completely different state of being when you start practicing this. That's one piece. So many different reasons why it's effective. The other is what you said, like you're within your own life experience and you've got these limitations, and you start, because of our flight or fight survival mind, we are going to make a boatload of assumptions. And a lot of those assumptions are so incredibly wrong. Even there was a study done where your peripheral vision, when you're filling that in your brain, it is grossly inaccurate. So if you apply that to your mind and your thinking, and just knowing and believing, rather than, and especially the older you get and the more experience you get, you have a tendency of thinking that you're so right. And probably a lot of the reason why I think I'm more right than Curtis, but that's a whole other topic. But it really is, you have to challenge yourself a whole lot more in thinking that you know something, because it really does, it is an impediment to creative thinking and innovation. So you think you know, you better ask yourself and say, do I really know this to be true, or is it still true? And definitely challenge those assumptions, because that's will bring a lot of humility, because you'll start to recognize that, wow, what I thought I knew, I actually don't know anymore. I need to re-look at this.
It's an update, of course. And can you like provide a practical example of how you do this? Because I mean, I think it's something that I think we can all agree makes sense, but how do we apply it on a daily basis? Because you're right, we make assumptions all of the time, right? In order to construct the reality in front of us, we are consistently making assumptions. Like when we're going down the stairs, we have assumed how many stairs there are. And when we miss that, we overstep and almost trip, right? So like, how do you do it on a daily basis to challenge yourself?
A great way to practice is in your car. So we all get people that are like weaving in and out and driving, inappropriately, right?
Yeah.
And that's getting worse and worse over time. Or maybe I'm just getting older and I'm like, how dare they drive like that? I don't know. That's a great place to practice, where you're thinking, I'll retrain my brain and think, I don't know what's going on in that person's life. Are they really just a jerk, or do they have to get to the hospital, or is there something else going on?
Yes.
Rather than making that assumption about somebody and then letting it, ruin your mindset. That's a great place to practice. The other thing is that if you get everybody misunderstands tone in text and email. I completely I'm hoping I misunderstand Curtis's tone a lot, or if it is tone, we'll have to meet about that sometime in person. But I think that's another really great place to practice that, where if somebody sends you something and let's say they copy somebody and they say something about you that doesn't necessarily shine the best light on you, is to not respond, is to pause and think and not respond, and just stop and think about your state of mind. Like for me, Curtis is going to say something like, how did you talk 11 minutes, Marissa? That was a ridiculously long interview. I'm going to just stop and pause and read that, knowing that he meant to cause me some pain there. But I'm going to choose that.
It comes from a place of admiration, right?
No, it doesn't.
I wish I could talk for 11 minutes.
Well, thank you both for talking about that. I think it's important to touch on that. But Zaira, you want to tell the people what we are talking the rest of our time about today?
Yeah, thanks, Whitney. Let's see. So we're jumping into the intersection between humor, comedy, and insurance. And I think throughout, y'all's career, you've been able to leverage humor in a way that helps you position yourself in the industry, right? And your message. I'm a huge fan of stand-up. I'm a little bit of a stand-up geek, and I think that may be George Carlin's fault or Richard Pryor, but one of my favorite comedians was Robin Williams and Trevor Noah, of course. And they both speak towards comedy being more of a universal language, right? And I think Robin Williams even said it's the language of the soul. And I totally agree with that, because if there's ever a time when things get real awkward, a good laugh can really bring things back, like almost nothing will. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. And I think, Whitney, do you want to bring up the first question?
Yeah. So I know we've kind of touched on it a little bit here and there, but for those of you that don't know, Marissa and Curtis have a special connection related to humor. So could you guys give us the backstory on your little feud, and then tell us what we all want to know is who is currently in possession of the infamous chain?
I'm going to pause.
There she goes.
I'm like, so that's how it's applied.
I don't know. Do you want to take that, Marissa?
I can take it. So Curtis's video, his rap for this year's or last year's ITC, I don't know why he reached out to me, but he reached out to me and probably about 15 to 20 other people. And
You were the last one. You were like my last choice. I was desperate.
Oh
said,
my
and I didn't really know Curtis at the time. And he said, could you, through LinkedIn DM, slid into my DMs and said, would you mind recording yourself on camera saying something about a hard market? Just really short, quick clip that I want to include in this year's Insurtech Wrap. So I was like, oh, what a privilege. This is so cool. I can't wait. So I went and recorded, hard market, something about that. And he included it in the video. And then he was very tactful in saying, I'm going to publish this at this time on this day. It'd be great if you could share this in your network. Such a sweet person. I was like, this guy is fantastic, completely
Oh, no.
snowed. So I shared the video in my LinkedIn profile, and I said, the first person, and I don't know why I did this. I think naturally I am a little competitive in a healthy way, right? And it was just so cool to be a part of this. And I thought, what would be funny is if I could get my hands on that chain, I would wear it in every Zoom meeting for the rest of the year. So I said, the first person that gives me that chain from Curtis, hard market chain, I'll wear it in every Zoom meeting for the rest of the year, and I'll give you $100.
Wow.
So, and I was hoping like that would spur some people talking. Then next thing you know, we're at ITC and I'm getting all of these images from people in text that I know with them with Curtis holding the chain. And I'm like, yes. And I'm like, well, which one's going to bring it to me? Like, what's going on? And then I finally run into Curtis, and he, so then in that whole moment of going back and forth, he starts communicating in LinkedIn and saying, hashtag save the chain. He starts pulling together his people. I started pulling together my people. And then I never saw Curtis in person. And I get to ITC in the meeting zone, and I'm about 200 feet away from him. And he is talking to Meredith Barnes Cook. And I'm like, and I'm in the middle of a conversation with 4 other people. And I said, can you hold on a second? I've got to go over there. At this point, Curtis had said some pretty instigating things to me publicly on LinkedIn. And I was like, I'm going to go get that guy, right? So I made a beeline over to him, gave Meredith my phone, and I said, I'm going to choke him out. Can you capture this?
With the chain.
And she did. She captured it for me really well, which was awesome. Those were the pictures, but it just kept going from there. And then Curtis, how great he is with content, and that superpower that he has, just kept the story going. And it was definitely a lot of fun.
I love that story.
Is that how you recall it, Curtis?
I think that was at least 50% accurate.
Close enough.
I think that one of the cool things about it is just how organic it was, right? Like literally nothing was planned ahead of time. And that was kind of a part of what made it so fun, is just that we were just kind of rolling with the punches as it went. And then I think maybe there was after ITC, there was maybe a little more strategy, that went into it, just to see, okay, how can we leverage this to continue to build our professional networks, and quite frankly, just to have a lot of fun with it, and hopefully bring a lot of smiles to people's faces. And I think we were pretty successful with that. So
That was
so.
great.
Mission accomplished.
Absolutely.
Except we do need to do a better job of giving people the backstory. So I super appreciate this episode here, because you are giving a lot of people that backstory, because there have been times when we've been in meetings together and they're like, why do they hate each other so much?
Okay, so some people have taken it quite serious, like you and Curtis definitely don't like each other.
Well,
that's absolutely true.
Right. It kind of is a true thing, right? It's really difficult. I should go see a therapist about this because I
Oh,
do
yeah.
care a lot about Curtis, but at the same time, when he posted something recently about going to the dentist and his face being numb, I was so happy about his face being numb that I was like, something is wrong with me. Like, why bring joy that this man is going through some hardships here? I got a real problem with this.
I mean,
Oh,
that's very interesting because it kind of goes towards our second question, which is like what your personal relationship is with humor. Like, Marissa, were you always the bully?
she went there.
It's just like, ah, numb face,
Say,
haha, ouch.
I was a bully to bullies. I could say that.
Oh, that's nice.
Fair enough.
Which that would be Curtis. But no, I always have thrived with humor, like just love laughing, love making other people laugh when I can, when it makes sense. I can cross the line in terms of getting a little bit too sarcastic and poking fun, which I recognize that too, but you know, it's all in the sport of laughter, really. But I definitely, it's a big part of my life. And I love what you said about the comedians and comedy and it being a universal language, because I think when I think about my relationship with Curtis, even, is that we do have a special bond because of the humor that we share, you know, like he's not going to confess to this, but when he was at IHS, he's like, hey, what are you guys doing later? Do you have plans for dinner? And I'm like, okay, he wants to actually hang out. Like we're turning over a new leaf here. And we had we got stuck in a vortex that night and could not escape where we were, which I don't know if we'd hang out again, but really, I do feel like there's a special connection with Curtis because of that. That's really rare that you don't have with a lot of people.
Yeah. What about you, Curtis? When did humor come into your journey and how has it evolved kind of throughout your career for
Yeah,
you?
I think that I mean it was pretty early on. I'm so thankful that the internet and YouTube and digital video did not exist, you know, when I was in middle school and high school years, because
Completely.
thankfully those old, you know, Betamax and VHS tapes, you know, have long degraded.
Right.
But point being, you know, back in high school, you know, was making silly videos and goofy, you know, crazy video content, right? And again, that was a long time ago, a different time. It seems like a different universe back then, and if those videos did exist, I'd probably be in jail today. But but you know, I've been creating, you know, humorous video content for a long time. And you know, I don't know why it didn't click sooner. I wish that because I had never done it, there was always that was always like my personal, right, like hobby, fun things that I did just for fun, right, and what I got my own kicks from. And that is what has been so mind-blowing to me literally just in the last 12 months is like, okay, I can actually, you know, mix that, things that I enjoy doing and that I get a lot of fulfillment from, and it's just kind of like, you know, recreational for me, and I can do that, and I can blend it and mix it with my professional life and career, and it actually is incredible for business. Like that's mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
And one thing that I wanted to touch on there, this is a little bit off topic, but I didn't want to miss it because it ties into what Marissa was saying. But solely from a business perspective, when you can inject humor into your client relationships, it makes those relationships so much stronger and
Yes.
so sticky. And like, that is one thing that um that I never would have dreamt, would happen in terms of, because again, like going back to like that very first Insurtech wrap that I made, I was literally terrified that my insurance carrier clients were going to actually see that, right? Because I thought, these are high level, executives at carriers, and
Risk
what are they
averse.
going to think of me, right?
Risk averse.
Yes, absolutely. Very, very risk averse, right? And that was like my biggest fear and my biggest hesitation to kind of blending that humorous side of me that I really enjoyed, but I was afraid to mix that with the professional because I thought this just doesn't fit. This is like oil and water, and there could be very negative ramifications of mixing the two, right? So and now fast forward, and it didn't take too long to realize that no, like this is exactly what the insurance industry needs. And it's not going to hurt those relationships. It's only going to strengthen them. And so it really does create a strong bond, just humor in general, right? When you can laugh with someone, when you can really share legitimate laughs and make memories with someone, with a client, right? Like that makes those business relationships extremely sticky, and is very beneficial.
Yeah, I think we've all experienced like being at a table with a group of people that have inside jokes and feeling completely ostracized because you're not part of those inside jokes. So it really is like this sub language that makes you feel like a team, So I can see it employed at work, at home, in school, right? I can imagine you being a bit of a class clown, Curtis. Like I had a feeling that this was not like your first, try at doing these videos because you do seem to have a very good handle of it. And as Marissa was saying, in terms of your relationship, well, that was a huge, icebreaker of just reaching out to her and asking her to do a video of herself for this, right? And then starting this relationship based on comedy now has created a bond that, as Marissa was saying, is incredibly special, right? So, going on with relationships with clients, do your clients reference your content? Is this something that you share with your clients as well?
So it's a bit of a mixed bag. I will be completely honest.
Yeah.
There are some carriers that whose leadership have followed along from the very beginning, and they thought it was awesome. And for those people, I'll proactively share things. There are others that maybe I'm not aware of the content reaching the top of the executive team. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. But if I don't know for sure that it already has, then there's
Okay.
still I will let that happen organically.
Of course.
But I will say that, I mean, we have a large number of carrier clients that, it literally comes up on, every time we have a monthly calibration call or whatever, it always comes up, and they're talking about the last meme or, the last music video and when's the next one coming, and, and that type of thing. The one other thing that I would say that may be a little bit interesting, not directly related, but it does tie in with it, is I have realized very quickly that there are people, especially higher level C-suite. I hear from them privately on a regular basis, and they tell me I can't engage with your content publicly, but I love it. Don't stop what you're doing.
Okay.
So I think that is an interesting dynamic. And again, I hope that maybe a part of this, I don't know what you want to call it, but just the humor that is beginning to be injected, more and more by, by all of these Making Waves recipients and so many other people, right? I feel like I don't want to call it a revolution, right? But I think it It would not be
Yeah.
inaccurate to say that there is more humor being injected into, you know, the our side of the industry, I guess you might say, right? Obviously, it's interesting to me. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked here,
No,
but
no, go
This is
ahead.
good. Go wherever you want.
yeah, it's interesting to me how on the consumer facing marketing side of the insurance industry, specifically personal lines, right? But like for a lot of years now, like all of that marketing, not all, but the majority of that marketing has been driven by humor, right? Like carriers are trying to capture attention through the use of humor.
Right.
So that's been going on for quite some time, right?
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
I do feel like there has been this massive dearth of any of that filtering over into carrier and operations, basically, right? Like the
Right.
machine, the engine behind the insurance industry that makes it work. So
Mhm.
I do think that, you know, if we want to call that a revolution of sorts, it is slow, right? It takes time. Change is hard in something like this, as just as much as we know in any area of the insurance industry, change is slow and hard. But I do think that there's never been a time when it was more needed, right? The world has changed a lot in the last 5 years. And you know, there's never been a time where it was more needed and necessary from multiple perspectives, right? Just in terms of talent retention, right? And keeping people engaged and involved in the insurance industry, because it's been hard. We have had some
Yeah.
really hard years with you know, with challenges that no one in the industry has ever had to face before, right? And
Yeah.
so, you know, I think we would do a disservice if we ignored that fact, right? That times have been hard for all of us. So, you know, to have this injection of humor and the lighthearted side of things, and be able to, you know, be able to step back and say, hey, yes, the work that we do on a daily basis is so serious and so vitally important for society as a whole. Um, but we can have fun doing it. You know, we can poke fun at ourselves. We can make fun at ourselves. We can see the irony of the way that the industry works. I think that's all really, really important.
I agree. Well, you heard it first, people. We're starting a revolution. Officially, it has begun. Humor and insurance revolution. Well, before we wrap up, I know we're getting close to time here. Before we wrap up, do either of you have any last minute piece of advice for the listeners? Anything that you want to bring up as something that you haven't gotten to mention yet that you wanted to make sure was included in regards to humor and insurance?
I want to first say, I think that was longer than 11 minutes, what Curtis just did
Gonna
right there.
say, yeah, I agree.
But I do think, you know, in addition to humor, there is a revolution in the sense of the workforce. And driven a lot by the transition and growth of different generations into different positions that have very different outlooks on life, that will allow us to start to see a whole lot more authenticity. So I think the hierarchy is going to change in terms of the structure of an organization. But we're also going to start to see people being true to who they are in any various levels of roles that they have within companies. And I do think that there's going to be a very interesting way where you'll see companies resisting those changes and those shifts, but they're going to have to evolve in that way.
Yeah.
And I think with authenticity comes humor and realism and talking about things, the challenge of what they are. Like, I do think an insurance company could do what Curtis is doing, but they could also talk about why it's a problem, and why together we all need to start making a change to make it a better conditions and things like that. So in case people didn't recognize Curtis, I think everybody now recognizes.
There he
Yeah.
is.
You mentioned authenticity, Marissa, and it just inspired me.
You're like,
So.
oh, who am I? Who am I? But what a great opportunity to be here. And one other thing I wanted to say about what Curtis, about the relationship and about humor, and about with your clients, humor with clients, I would like to know if the science behind humor, because I bet you that it leapfrogs the ability to build trust versus the traditional process of not injecting humor. It's like when you laugh with somebody, that relationship changes. And I think you trust that person a lot more. So I want to find out if there's any science behind any of this stuff so I can see the value, even more value.
There's definitely science behind it. I don't know it, but I know that for sure there is a science to communicating with humor. And I think, as you said, Marissa, humor is really just a manifestation of authenticity. I think what Curtis was talking about breaking out of his shell and doing, or bringing in that part of him that he felt he needed to keep separated, also ties into what you're saying about assumptions, right? Because we assume that the industry wants a corporate facade, and that's what we bring to the table. But as Curtis was bringing up, actually, I brought my full self to the table, and I'm finding that not only is it okay, it's making me thrive. So, I mean, if that's a message for anybody, it's not so much about just humor, but authenticity that this comes to. And I mean, Whitney probably has more to say on this matter.
I am such a fan of authenticity, and I think that people these days, they want that real. Like, they don't want your super professional game. They don't want to feel like they're playing games. They just want you. They want you to show up as your true self. And I love that we're moving in that direction, and that people are talking about authenticity and humor and how to shake it up a little bit. That makes me beyond happy, because I'm not good at being super formal. I just am who I am, and super formal does not fit me. So it makes me so happy.
And you're doing great, Whitney. I love your content. And I feel like it's a privilege to be a part of you starting doing that and watching you put yourself out there and take risks and do that. I think it's admirable.
Thank you. That means so much to me. You have no idea, because both of you are definitely people that I look up to. And when I think about my content and what I want to accomplish, that's kind of how I learn, as I go and look at people that are doing what I would like for mine to look like. And then I kind of watch and learn. And so both of you are on my list of, I might be lurking in the background, but I interact too. So not complete lurking, but definitely some lurking going on.
I love it. Even Curtis? Even Curtis? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, yeah. Even Curtis. I mean, Curtis, I had to triple dog dare Curtis, and then he had to get in the cold. So yeah, I couldn't lurk on that one.
That was crazy.
Well, thank you both for joining us today. We're so glad for all of our listeners tuning in to this episode of CoVerse, the podcast, with our special guests, Curtis and Marissa. And we're so glad you came to talk about this very important topic with us, humor insurance. And now you know that we have officially started a revelation. So it's time to go. Let's go. Trevor Noah said it best when he said, if you laugh with somebody, then you know you share something, which we talked about a lot going through this episode. So in the business of insurance, where relationships rule, that is so impactful. So be sure to check out other episodes of CoVerse the podcast and connect with us on socials. We'll see you next time.